We're building a DIY extension and it's roofing time. A hell of a messy job. And in this episode we're taking our roof off our old extension and we're out in the wind putting our new roof on. Here it comes. Tell you what, I'm not even going to say anymore. Moment of truth, was all that hard work actually worth it? So we're now going to build the rest of our walls up and get our new roof on. But before we get a new roof on, we need to get this old one off. Starting with our ridge tiles, we just use a bolster, get under them tiles, and then we can lift the ridge tiles off. Once we've got the ridge tiles off away from the mortar, that'll give us loads of access to then lift each of these courses of tiles off one by one until we get to the bottom. Tiles are off. There's a few there, and we got to get them down yet, Chris. Looking forward to that. Now we're attacking our guttering and our fascia boards and soffits. There's no art to this, it is just persuasion. Hit it, use a bar, and it'll come off. This roof has been on air for nearly 40 years. Look at it, it's starting to rot away already. I'd have had to have done something with that eventually anyway, so good job we're taking it off really. Now we're going to get the battens off and then the felt off. Now battens, they're just nailed on, so it's just a case of levering them off and then the felt will be released and we can roll it up and chuck it in the bin. So we're getting there. Under that insulation is the plasterboard. We've got the timbers exposed. What we're going to do now is we're going to cut some of these out. We'll leave a few in to give us something to stand on and move around. This is the bit that I hate, to be honest, and I'll put a mask on when I finish speaking to camera. Obviously I can't really speak to you guys with a mask on, but do wear a mask when you're working with this stuff because it is grim. Fiberglass is grim. Well, I already feel itchy. Do you think it's all in my head? Yeah. Do you know, you were only employed to be a cameraman. Why are you doing this lot? There ain't a lot left now. That side we got a swimming pool. This side we got a trampoline. Can you imagine if that broke and I went through it? That'd be one on camera, wouldn't it? We're getting there. We're on to the last stage of the roof now. Plasterboard and joists. We need to separate the two because you can't just put plasterboard in the skip. You have to pay extra. It's quite expensive to get rid of plasterboard, so we need to separate that from the joists as best we can. And the quickest way is gravity. You can see here that if we just hit it with a hammer, the whole lot falls in the old extension below. And we can just sweep it all up afterwards. Worst of the roof is off, and this is where it gets interesting because we need to take this gable down. Our new roof, a lean-to roof, we've got to get the rafters on there, and this is of course in the way. So I'll take this gable end down for now, and then we can get the height correct for the lintel and where it's going to go in its new location. We've taken the brickwork off, exposed the lintel because this lintel needs to come down 2 courses so we can get that pitch on the roof. So this should come off fairly easily now. There we go. All right, with that roof off, we now need to get ready to get the new one on. So Aaron's back again. We just got a little tent we put him up in the garden. You know, we wheel him out when we need him. And all we're going to do is block this up 2 courses, ready to get the plate on. So that's a bit of timber that sits on this front wall here, and that supports the rafters for the new roof. So before we can get that on, get the new roof on, we need to get these walls up to the right level. So a lot of you are probably going to notice different colour blocks. That is not for any reason, it's just because the building supplier that we get our blocks from sent us the wrong blocks. They arrived this morning on a pallet and we just got to use them because we're here, we need to get on. Now the block work, you've seen enough of that in the last couple of episodes. I'm not going to bore you with the fine details. Like I said, we're just getting them walls built up to the right level. Right, lintel going on for the new window. When you put these on, you have to have a bearing of 150mm at either end to support the lintel and the weight above it, of course. It's a bit heavier, this one. We're just bedding that lintel down on some mortar, and then what we're doing is just levelling it all ways, so the length of it and across it, just to check that it's nice and level, because that will have an impact on the top plate and the whole building. Now the fun bit, whilst Aaron's finishing the block work on that front wall, I'm gonna make the top plates. The top plates, these 4x2s, they sit on the top of the wall, and what they do is they support the weight of the rafters that meet onto them. I'll just do these on the floor, should be nice and quick. We ain't got to join them yet anyway, they just have to overlap. 100 mil, just gonna mark 100 mil there. They're 45 mil in width, so we need to remove 22.5 mil of material 100 mil in. We're gonna set the saw to 22.5 mil. And to make a perfect half lap joint, all we're going to do is make a series of cuts across the width of that timber, and then we're going to use a hammer to remove the material and a chisel to actually smooth the material off afterwards, and that'll give us the perfect half lap joint. So we cut the plates to length. You can see the two bits of timber with the half lap joint in the middle, so hopefully that makes a little bit more sense now. Now we'll get some mortar on there. Bed that on some mortar, make sure it's nice and level. It gets fixed once the roof goes on because you need to be able to move it at this point. So all we're going to do is we're going to bed it on some mortar and then leave it at that, and we can continue to block up. We're done up there for now till we start getting a new roof on. Now it's time to make some mess. We need to take this wall out, this old patio doors, all that, all got to come out. So yeah, let's make some mess. Now we've actually made this a lot harder for ourselves than we needed to because we can't get tight enough with the big cutter with the water suppression on it. So you can see I'm making a cut that's quite far away from the wall. We should have done this before from the other side before we put the new extension block work up. That is a hell of a messy job. This will be the quickest knock through ever. The door actually didn't fit the hole. Whoever put it in had about, I don't know what, 70 mil above it. So had a few issues with the tape measure there. So it's
expansion gap.
Yeah, it's an expansion gap. It's been a nice easy one to take out, this has. Oh, I don't know, it's not that heavy. Here it is.
That's out.
It's out, yeah. Demolition time. Now I need to knock as much of this brick and block work down as I can, and then I'm going to have to get in tighter and make some more cuts. Now we're going to have to use a 9-inch grinder to get tighter to the wall, and I wouldn't recommend this because you have to take the guard off. It's hard work and it's very dusty. This is a really, really grim job, and you can see Chris is trying his best here to suppress the dust, but it's really not working. This is just one of them jobs, but we do get there in the end. We do get tight enough and we can knock the rest of the brick and block out. Yeah, I look like a snowman now. And now we need to take another one out because where we took that old bay window out in the last episode, there's a set of sliding doors going in there. So we need to cut the bottom of that wall out. And on this one, we're cutting not in line with the render, but in line with the block. Nice plumb line. We're going to make a plumb line on there down to the damp course. We leave the damp course in and we just cut from there up that reveal. So the demolition is done for today. Now we can get on and get the roof on at last because the rain's coming. The very first part of getting the roof on, well, we've got the top plate on, but we need to get the ledger plate on the face of the building to hold the rafters. So the ledger plate, actually look, there's a guy doing a roof over there, and all that sound is now going to go over this video. So sorry if the sound is rubbish. But what we need to do is this ledger plate, of course, needs to sit on the face of the house, just under the windows there. Now, we've worked out where it needs to go, but I'll explain more of that in a minute. Ignore these old bits of door that are in the way. But our end rafter sits flush with the render here. That's the end of that rafter. It's the same the other end. And then we've worked out 400mm centres. They're the centres, the crosses. They're the edges of the rafter. 400 as we go along. When we get to where the Velux windows are going to go, you have to have double rafters and a rafter in the centre. Same there, 2 double rafters on the side of the Velux there, and then again every 400. The B's, they're for the bolts, and they are again every 400. So the bolts that are going to go in the wall over there. Because this piece of timber is exactly the same length as the one that's going to go up there, we've done all our working out on this bit of timber because it's easier. And it's easier because we're working with 200mm wide ledger plates. So they're quite a big, heavy bit of timber. We're going to struggle to get them up on the wall there. And to get them up and work them out up there is a lot more difficult. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut these to length, and then we're going to lay them up against the top plate here where we've already done our working out. We can then transfer the marks to the ledger plate so we know where everything has to go once we've got it up on the wall. The reason we mark out for the rafters now and where they're going to go is because when we bolt the ledger plate to the wall, so that big bit of timber to the wall, we don't want the rafters to end up hitting where the bolts go. For the working out of the spacings of the rafters, where the bolts need to go, how we fix the bolts, which is going to be Chemfix, the studs that we use, all that stuff, that's all in the drawings. So I've not had to guess any of that. It's been worked out by the structural engineer who did all the calculations, and all we've got to do is follow the plan, hopefully. So all the rafters and all the bolts are marked on the ledger plate. The ledger plate now needs to go up on the wall. So that's the top of our ledger plate, but how did I work that out? Well, basically we're limited by the windowsill and where we need to tuck the lead in underneath. So we're going to tuck our lead in this joint here. How we've done that is 100mm upstand for the lead flash, and that's a little bit less than you'd normally have, but 100mm will give us plenty. 100mm for lead flash and 60mm, if you look here, this will make a bit more sense over here, 60mm the end of this tile for tile and batten. So that leaves us that mortar joint there, 200mm bit of timber down from that mortar joint, it'll finish there. The bolts can't go into mortar, they have to go into bricks, and that's why we've now marked it all on the timber. We can now get the timber up, level it off that mark there, all the way along. So we nearly got this up now. Matey boy on that roof over there, he's give up because we've now had a rainstorm. So this is the perfect time to film because he stopped making noise. So what we're doing is we're hitting through some plugs and screws through into the brick, getting this nice and level so that the whole thing's held there, and then we'll Chemfix the whole thing to the wall. But that's a lot easier doing it like that than trying to hold it up there and do the whole thing. Right, fixing the ledger plate. The plans say you have to use M12 bolts. We're going to Chemfix it. So RChem2, that's a resin fixing. And what we're going to do is we're going to drill through the ledger into the brick. And what's going to happen is, if you imagine that this is your brick, what we're going to do is we're going to go in 120mm. So that's how it's going to sit within the wall. And then you're going to have a plate washer. So these come with normal washers, but we want to use square plate ones. Gives us a much wider, secure fixing. And then on nut, I'm not going to wind it on because then I'll have to wind it all the way off. That's going to sit on there, pull the whole thing to the wall. So we'll get up there. I've taped off the depth we want because we don't want to blow the back of the brick out. We've only got 100mm to work with, so we're going to go into the brick by 70mm. Bit of timber's 45, but we're giving ourselves 50mm. 13mm wood bit through there first. We need to make sure it doesn't fall into mortar. SDS with a 14mm bit. Now they're M12 bolts. You need a 14mm because you need 2mm for the resin to go around the fixing. So it's a 14mm bit. Now I'll blow this and vacuum it. So we need to make sure it's dust free. Everything is absolutely soaked, and yeah, we've been rained off so many times today. A minute ago it was sunny, we're putting the ledger on the wall. Now all our resin's going to go off because this is England. Are you having fun?
Oh yes, I'm having fun.
Now, RChem2, just mix it. You'll see when it comes out the tube, it mixes within the nozzle. So you'll see, there we go, that is mixed. And at the end of the nozzle, going to pop that into the end of the hole and make sure we get plenty in there as we withdraw the nozzle. So withdraw it slowly as you pump the resin in the hole. Now, M12. As we put this in, we don't just push it in, we actually twist it so it goes in the threads, just like that. Right, now plate washer. We're not going to do this up yet because you need to look on the back of the tube And it says at 15 degrees, which is about what we're at now, between 15 and 20, it's going to take 45 minutes to cure. So all we do, pop that nut on there. That'll do for now. We'll come back to that once it's gone off in about 45 minutes and we'll tighten them all up. This video is sponsored by Ultimate Tool Competitions, my website where you guys could win this 30-piece DeWalt power tool kit with enough tools to fill a van. One of you guys needs to win this, so head to the link down in the description, grab your tickets, and we'll see you on the live draw. Back to the video. Now, before we get rafters on here, I want to order my roof tiles because we're going to have a structure soon, very exciting, and I need to get them tiles ordered. I'm hoping that by raising the windows up, that you saw me do 2 courses in the last episode, go back to episode 4 if you haven't seen that. I put new windows in, took the windows up 2 brick courses to give myself more pitch. My hope is that we've raised it past 12.5 degrees. Our very minimum needs to really be 12.5 degrees. Best case scenario is I've opened this up to at least 15 degrees. That will open up more tile options that should save me some money because there's just more options, they're more readily available, and that of course makes them cheaper. So now I'm going to show you a really quick, easy cheat to working out the pitch on this roof so we can get some tiles ordered. String line and a brick pin. On the end of the timber here, in line with the first rafter, so the first rafter here will sit hard against the blocked up gable end. I'm going to pop a brick pin in just on the top of my ledger plate. Oh no, my string lines fell in the water. Anyway, pop your string line on there so that it sits on the top of that ledger plate because that's where the top of the rafter is going to sit. Doesn't really matter how you attach the string line. You can use a pin like this or you could just pop a screw in the top of the bit of timber. The important thing is that the string line sits on the top of the ledger plate there. So the string line comes down there and this end I have just propped the string line up where the top of the rafter is going to sit because remember we've got a bird's mouth of 1/3 of the timber coming out of the rafters. Now, moment of truth, digital IMEX level with a degrees reading on it. We're going to hold this against the line. Now remember, worst case 12.5 degrees, but let's see if all that work actually paid off, and best case we'll get 15 degrees. So, or more than 15 degrees. So we're going to hold this on here just off the line. This is the hardest bit, is actually iron this, but we have got, look at that, that in my book is bang on 15 degrees, so I'll take it. That just saved us a lot of money, so all them days of work were worth it. So now we can cut our first rafter and we'll try that all the way down just to check that it fits all the way to the other end of the extension, and then we can copy it. So when we are picking out our rafters, we need to see where the crown is. So the crown is the bow in the timber, and you want the crown facing upwards, but that way the weight of the roof when it sits down on the timber will compress the timber straight. If you have the crown facing down, it'll just accentuate. Is that a word? Accentuate? Apparently it is a word. That'll make it worse. So we need the crown up, so the crown's this side, and that will be the top of the plumb cut. Miter saw set to 15 degrees. That way we can do the plumb cut on the miter saw, which is easier because you know it's going to be more accurate, and we've got loads to do, so we can just repeat. So now that crown, I'll just make a little mark that that's the top. Yeah, so that's the crown in the top of the timber, that's the plumb cut, that's the top. Now, tape measure. The measurement up there to the end of the plate, the wall plate, was 3,595. So we measure from the top, the very peak of the plumb cut that sits on the ledger, 3,595, and then at the bottom of the timber here we pivot our pencil round, and you'll notice that that has a slight bow on that line there. It's not straight. Right, so I normally do this with a speed square, but Aaron's brought this fancy bit of kit. This is Dan Cox Ultimate Roofing Square, I think it is. Essential Carpenter Tools. There you go, there's a shout out. Good bit of kit this though. He's just showing me how to use this because I've never used one. Like I say, I do it the old way with a speed square. If you watch my shed series, you'll see how I do this, but this makes it a lot easier, and I've already forgot how to use it. Now for the bird's mouth that sits on the top plate, on the bottom of the bit of timber, we need to take out 1/3. The bird's mouth shouldn't be any more than 1/3. 1/3 of 145 is 48. point something. Siri told me that. So what I'm going to do on my line that I just made there, they can't see. So what I'm going to do on my line that I just made there, I'm going to go 48 mil. And then with this roofing square, what we're going to do is we're going to set this to 15 degrees. Tighten that up there, lay it on here. Look how much easier this is. That will then line up with that mark we made, right in the peak of the corner there. Strike a line. That's the seat cut for the bird's mouth. Now the heel cut, if you come this side, they're not going to see it there. If we mark down here, that's the heel cut, and that's the bit that we take out. That is a lot easier than a speed square. Dan Cox, send me one. Right, let's cut this. Right, that's cut. Let's try it up there. So I'm going to hold this end at the top of the ledger plate, which is somewhere there. Hang on, this way a bit. And how is it?
Spot on.
Spot on. Right, so now we can try this all the way along to check that there's no deviation between the ledger and the top plate. Aaron's going to start getting these on now. He's lost something though.
I need a rafter.
That'd help, wouldn't it?
Yeah. You're probably going to have to hold the other end and all.
So I'll hold the other end and video, it's fine.
Yeah.
So you see this? This is what you need in England to cover your camera up. We're going to film it on the move and do it. One-handed. Now you'll remember, I've already marked all these out when we did the bolts, so that saves us a job. So they're all on. Look how nice and flat that is. Perfect. What do you reckon, Aaron? Good?
Spot on. So we're just going to work out our fascias. We know that we want a 200 mil overhang for the soffit. So we've got 200 there now. What we're going to do, I'm just going to plumb the line up there.
Nailing the end one in line with that plumb line, string line all the way down. So it's not touching the timbers because of course timber is all bowed and warped by its nature. So all the way at this end, around a nail this end, and then Aaron's got his bevel there. Show us what you're going to do with that.
Yeah, I did the
other end?
The line's on the other side.
There we go, we're going this end.
Line our bevel up with the line that we drew on the rafter. And all we're going to do is we're going to sit it on there like that, come down, just so we're off the line, fraction off the line, and then we can mark them like that.
And then all we've got to do is cut the foot of each rafter with our rear handled saw. This is where you're going to hope you were good at maths at school, or you at least listened. You know when we said we're never going to use maths? You're about to use it.
We're going to use a lot of maths.
So this is quite complicated, not something I've got much experience in, so Aaron's going to explain this to you.
So we need to work out our tile gauge, so we know where to put our trimmers for the Velux windows. What tiles have we got? These are Santoff double
pan tile.
Double pan tiles in smooth grey. So these will go down to minimum pitch of 15 degrees. The two most important, to start with, the two most important things is to find out where your top batten is and where the top of your bottom batten is going to be. Each tile has an overhang. It's generally around 30 mil, but these are 20 mil. So the tile sticks 20 mil past this batten. So we're going to leave a 20 mil gap between the tile and the house at the top as well. So that means our top batten needs to be 40 mil down from the brickwork of the house up here, which will be something around there. So we've got a 40 mil gap. So that tells us where our top batten is. Now to work the bottom batten out, you generally want around a 50 mil overhang past your fascia. So the tile's hanging 50 mil past the fascia. just sort of sitting roughly in the centre of your gutter. So all you got to do is just sit your tile on a bit of batten. Obviously we haven't got the fascia on at the minute. Our fascia is 20 mil, so we're just going to add that on. So we're looking for around 70 mil. So all you would do is just obviously slide this up and down like that until you get to your 70 mil, which is what we've done, and draw a line on the top of the batten there. So that's our line there. So now we know where the bottom batten's going to be. So now we just need to take a measurement. So in our instance, we took it from the top of the house here, just like that, all the way down to the top, or to this mark, which is the top of the bottom batten. And that gave us 3685. So then we deduct our 40 mil gap at the top, or our top batten will be 40 mil down. That gave us 3645. So on this particular tile at 15 degrees pitch, it says the minimum head lap is 100 mil. So what I'm going to do is just mark 100 mil on the tile there, just on both sides. Just sit another tile above, make sure the batten's tight to the tile, and we're just going to move this up and down until we get to our 100 mil head lap. Now that we're there, if you measure top of batten to top of batten, that'll tell you what the gauge is at 100 mil head lap. So in our case, that's 315 mil. So what we're going to do is divide 3 meters 645 by the gauge of 315 mil. And that gave us 11.5. So that's telling us 11.5 rows of tiles. Obviously we can't have a half row. So what we do is we take that original number again, 3645, and we divide it up by 12. So we get 12 equal rows of tiles. That gave us a batten gauge of 304 mil. Which in turn gave us a head lap of 119 mil. Now the maximum head lap on these tiles is 120, so we just about made it. So yeah, that's kind of how you...
if we didn't, we'd have had to stretched it.
Yeah, we'd have to gone the other way.
Yeah.
And then you'd lose a few mil per row.
Yeah.
But so we've got 12 rows plus the first row, so we've got 13 rows in total from bottom to top. And it'll all be nice and whole.
All right, Aaron's up there, so you might as well explain. Aaron, what are you doing?
I'm just marking out centres for the bolts, as we've got to bolt the doubles together. The structural engineer has specified in our case. Hang on.
I keep wanting to talk, but you're doing such a good job of it. I don't really need to say anything.
I don't even know if people can hear me.
Hang on. Can you hear him? Give us a thumbs up if you can. Don't give us a thumbs down if you can.
Because my microphone's underneath my coat. Right, let's start that again.
Subscribe, because then you won't miss any upcoming video. Isn't that right?
Yeah, exactly. Right, so all we're doing is...
hang on, go on.
So all we're doing is just marking out the centres for the bolts. The structural engineer has specified that these need to be 600 centres in the centre of the timber. So we're just marking these out so we can drill them, and then we'll be able to bolt these together and just make sure they're all nice and flat on the top.
Yeah, just to add silly little details, but where we drill through where the actual window is, they need to be flush, so we'll use a nut gun just to really nip them in. I'll try and get you a few close-ups of that. Obviously it's hard when you're up on a roof, but we'll get as many close-ups for you as you can. You can see there's going to be a bolt here.
Don't make the mistake of putting them that way around.
Yeah.
Because the window's going this side, so you've got to put them that way.
There you go. Chuck me a drill and I'll show them this end, Aaron. Try and hold this with one hand. So, hopefully now you're on the tripod, you can see. Push that through. These are M12s. That's what's specified on the drawings. Obviously, if you're doing something like this, you'll follow your drawings anyway. Plate washer. If I can do it all backwards, I can. And Aaron can do it up. Doubled up trimmers, just nailed together with 75mm nails, and they go between the rafters. There you go.
Top and bottom.
To support the top and bottom of the window. So now all the timber's up, we need to put our metalwork in. So we've got the double joist hangers. They go, if I climb up here, they go around anywhere around the windows where there's 2 bits of timber. And then we've got single joist hangers. They go around the singles. We've then got truss clips. I'll show you where they go. Truss clips. You can see we've already put some up, to be fair, up round the rafter onto the top plate. And then you can see how the frame and anchors go. They sit under the doubles on the top plate and they bend up round the sides. So they go on with these twist nails. You can see we've got collated ones on strips. You can either buy these for about £4 or £5 for a pack, or if you want to use a gun, where's the gun? So I borrowed this gun off Aaron to do this. So this gun, the PPN XI, you can use one of them, but you need to spend nearly £100 on a pack of nails and fuel cells. So it's either it's a bit of a choice really. You either spend £4 or £5 on a box of them, doing by hand, or if you want to use a gun, you spend nearly £100 for the pleasure. But it's quicker because you've got to put a nail in every single hole. We've also popped our straps on to keep the top plate strapped down to the wall. Now all the metalwork's done, I'm going to show you a nice quick and easy way of doing your fascia and soffit. We ain't even got to put any pins in when we use this technique. So what we do is we pop our soffit on first. That just lays on the top course of bricks there. So it's quite tricky to do it all on your own because obviously it's quite floppy. So I'll probably get Chris to come and drop the camera in a minute and give me a hand. But what we're going to do is just get that, if you come in here Chris, get that so that's laying flush with the back there. So that's flush with the top row of blocks or briquettes all the way along, nice and flush. There we go. And we've overlapped 20mm because we're having a rendered building, so the render will come up under that nicely. Right, so that's the soffit laid in. Now why don't we need to pin it? Because normally you'd be under there and you'd be pinning it. Well, this little trick is quite clever actually. What we're going to do is we're going to pop this bit of timber on here, rough sawn bit of timber, if I can get it in there. Scaffolding's right in the way as usual. I'm going to lay that flush with the back of the soffit. So if you just look there Chris, you can see us flush with the back of the top briquette and the soffit. What we've done is measured down from the top of the rafter down to that bit of timber, cut some lengths. When I push that down, it presses the soffit between the timber and the block underneath. I'll sort that one out, but you get the idea. That is now pressing that down, so that soffit is in the perfect position. We ain't got to bother putting pins in. Right, now we've measured from the end there where the soffit finishes to where our joining piece is going to be. You can see we've already put this one on. We've measured the length of the fascia. Boat level, lay that on the soffit because we need it level, which will dictate the height, if that makes sense. So get that nice and level, tape on there. There we go, 230. So that's ripped down to the right width, and now we've got these poly top pins and they need to go into the ends of the rafter. So through the fascia into the ends of the rafter. Go at 90mm, we'll have a pin there, and the top of the set square we'll have a pin there. So we're going to end up with a nice even gap in the end of each rafter. Now set square on the bottom of the fascia, mark there, mark there. Just pop them in like that. They're then ready to be hit in. We'll do that all the way along. Doing it that way cannot be wrong. Now we can take the film off it because we don't want to trap the film underneath the polytops. So pull that off, little boat level, and we're going to level the soffit as we go because that dictates, as we move that soffit up and down, where the fascia ends up. So if we move that up, keep it nice and level, and we can drive those polytops all the way home. We can do that all the way along. Our fascia covering strip then just gets stuck on with a 2-part glue, and you can see I only glue one side so they don't split, and then chop off the excess. Now Aaron's just blocking up the rest of the gable end, bringing it up to full height, and you've seen enough of the block work in this series, so I'm not going to bore you with the fine details of that. If you want to learn block work, go back to an earlier episode. With the gable ends done, the extension's looking much bigger. I've just popped these bits of timber on there to stop the rain getting in the cavities as best I can, and you'll probably notice there's some PIR insulation in there. Now, what we need to do is put a few bits of this in a couple of places before we tile and batten coming next. Because It's going to be tricky if we tile and batten this and try and do it afterwards. And the reason for that is because we need to make sure we insulate above the plate. So you'll see here I've cut the bird's mouth out of the insulation. You can see I've already done some, and it overlaps the plate and meets with the insulation at the top of the wall. So we need to do that all the way along. And all I've done is I've cut some sections that will be tricky later, and I've left a 2.4 metre gap between insulation at the top and insulation at the bottom, so I can fill those bits from below once the roof is on. The top needs to have the plumb cut on there, so that is also easier to do at this stage. You can't just cut it square because then you wouldn't really have effective insulation, so we need to cut that 15-degree plumb cut angle on the top as well. This is 100mm PIR insulation, and it's flush with the bottom of the rafters here, so I'll push it down so it's flush with the bottom of the rafters. I'll notch around the straps because if you look under there, that's where our straps go to the gable end. They're sitting on 4x2s, so the insulation gets notched around that and cut that plumb cut on the top there. The board then gets pushed flush with the bottom of the rafter, and that leaves us with a gap here for the airflow because the roof needs to breathe, so we need air above there, and that maintains the gap. What I'll do before I put these bits in is I'll just put some timber just here, little length of timber, so when I push these ones up from above, they don't just fall in the gap. Now all the rafters will be different, so you'll need to take a measurement of each rafter and make these nice and tight, so you've got to bang them in. You've got to get it exactly right, because if it's too big, it won't go in and you end up trimming it down, and if it's too small, it's going to fall straight through. Now a little cheat for you, Bosch soft material blades. These are brilliant. Pop them in your jigsaw, much faster than a handsaw, and cuts down the dust. These bits of batten go in to maintain the air gap when I push the rest of the insulation in from below. Right, it's roof day, and of course it is windy. Aaron's back, wave. And what we're now going to do is we're going to start off by getting our eaves trays in, and then we're going to batten and membrane, or the other way around, membrane, batten, get some tiles up, haven't we?
Yep.
Get the tiles on. Or start getting the tiles on, and then get some V-Luxes in. So first thing, we'll explain to you what these eaves trays do, because we've got 3-in-1 eaves trays, and a few of you probably are wondering why our soffits are not vented soffits. Well, spin this round and Aaron's going to tell you why.
So 3-in-1 basically means we've got a tray, second part is the bird comb, third part is over fascia ventilation.
Yep.
So they just sit on there. Right, so you'll see there's a little plastic foot on the bottom here.
Let me see if I can
you
get
can
the
see
angle
that.
for you. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that.
That just pushes up against the fascia, and then it allows the air to flow over the top there.
Yeah,
just like
I
that.
don't know whether they can see on the camera. So yeah, this little foot pushes up against the fascia, and then air can travel through there and the roof can breathe. Oh, I don't want pie.
Do you like pie?
Like what? Puck pie? Yeah, do I? I had puck pie last night, I think.
Don't do pie, Keely. I don't want pie. You want pizza tonight? Is he strong enough? All you're going to hear is a load of huffing and puffing on the mic. There you go.
There you go.
This is where you get to laugh at us, because it's like gale force winds. Of course it is, because we're doing felt. It's going to blow everywhere.
Always is windy, isn't it?
We don't normally like to put a lot of staples in, but we might have to put a few in this one, Aaron.
I reckon so.
So yeah, enjoy laughing at us whilst we struggle. I would normally put the drone up, but it's too windy. Can't even get the drone up. Here it comes. Here comes the wind.
I need a bit more slack.
What?
I need a bit more.
You need more?
Yeah. Yeah, that'll do.
This is where it's going to blow back. He's just putting a few staples in, hopefully to hold it. Shouldn't go anywhere now.
No, we'll get a batten on there now, can't we? That'll weigh it down.
Right, batten on next. We get the first batten on, and then we'll just rework out the gauge, won't we?
Yeah, we'll just double check. Right, so we just put our first batten on. Our eave support tray hangs over from the fascia 50mm. Most gutters are 100mm wide, so that'll be sat dead in the centre of the gutter. And then all you're looking for is when your tile sits on there, you basically want that in line there, so the water's going to run off and drip straight into the centre of the gutter.
We've got 75mm ring shank nails. What we're going to do, start nailing these battens on, and the gauge of the tiles is 304mm. So what we've got to do is measure top of this batten, this first one, to the top of the next one, nail them down at 304mm. But obviously that is just in our case. You've got to do your own workings out dependent on the length of your roof. To make sure you fall right at the end. Now we nail to every rafter as we go along. Keep checking the gauge as we go, because these battens are warped and bent. They always are, so you need to keep maintaining that gauge as you nail these to each rafter. What we don't do is nail the last one. We've got a Spestalux that sits on the top of this last block. The last bit of the batten, once we nail that down, we'll push it down, but for now we need to be able to lift it up and down to slot the Spestalux in, so we don't nail the last one. And now let's rinse and repeat towards the top of the roof. So the next row of felt or membrane starts there, overlaps of course, because then the water runs over the top. Shouldn't get any water behind there, but if you did, or any moisture, of course you don't want the moisture to go under it, so it overlaps. We've folded the felt up, so where it's going to finish is just under where our lead work's going to finish. Now we're just carrying on up to the wall with these battens. What you can see here is we've taken the ones to the Veluxes, so there's a Velux window here. We'll cut this out afterwards. But these ones come to the very edge of our doubled up timbers, doubled up rafters that sit next to the Veluxes. And then when we put the Veluxes in, we'll do the rest of the battens around it. Right, all the battens are on, apart from the ones for the Veluxes. We've got two Veluxes. What I might do, I haven't decided yet, is do a standalone video on that one and show you guys how to install a Velux window. I'll decide later whether I'm going to do that or not. But for now, what we're going to show you is how we do it as part of this series. We'll do a quick run through. Obviously, if I do a standalone video, it'll be more in depth. But anyway, fire away, Aaron, as you're down there.
So yeah.
It's frozen.
Stuck. So, according to the Velux instructions, this bottom batten for the Velux window needs to be 80mm above the top of the tile, which we're at. So that's why it was so important setting out the batten gauge to find out where to put our doubles, because our double rafter is literally right there. This batten has to protrude 250mm past the inside of your double there on both sides, and then your top one only has to protrude 100mm. Then all you need to know is your window size. You just add 45mm on. In our case, the window size is 1400. We're going to go to 1445. And that batten's going to sit just on there like that. Like I say, 100mm past the inside. A smidge. And that will create the opening for the Velux.
With that batten set, we can now tile a row at a time up to the bottom of the Velux.
So we're just tiled up to the bottom of the Velux now. So now we can get that Velux fitted.
In a couple of weeks, keep an eye out. I'm going to do you a full guide, one of my classic how-tos on how to fit one of these. You can refer to that and use these two videos together. That'll be linked in the description of this video once it releases. This is an insulation collar that goes in place before we lift our Velux into position. Oh, don't pull. Jesus Christ.
Don't pull me.
Right, get ready for a load of arse in front of the camera, guys. Right, screwed in, we've checked its fitment, and now we're going to get the flashing kit on. Building up the flashing and gutter pieces for this takes time. There's a lot of steps to it. That's why I'm going to do a video on the subject. Now, all the tiles are on all the way at the top. I didn't want to bore you with the finer details because, well, you've already sat through a fairly long video. So now we're all the way over here. That only really leaves us with the final touches, the verges to finish and the lead work. Now for the verges, all I'm doing here is cutting my battens to the correct length. The great British weather again. But you know what? Snickers workwear keeps me dry every single time. Wouldn't be without this jacket, especially on a roof in this weather. So the battens are cut back. This is a Spestalux. This sits on the top of that block there. You can see I've already popped that one in, and then we'll staple our felt up. So this is the reason we don't nail that last row of battens, and we tuck this under and then we nail them. So all this does is tucks under, which is a little bit fiddly on your own. And then I cut my last row of tiles so they finish 10mm past the end of the battens. Right, with the verge, all we do is mix a little bit of mortar up. This is sharp sand and building sand mixed with cement, and that'll give us a little bit more strength in that mortar mix than if we just use building sand, and still retaining the workability of the building sand within the mix. Now I've made this mix a little bit drier, not too wet, because I want the body of it to remain. When I push the tile down and cut the edge of it, I don't want it to sink. And that leaves me a nice clean edge. Verge is done, that just leaves the lead work. The first step of lead work is to grind out 20mm mortar in the joint that we want to tuck our lead into. I'm then cutting off lengths of lead at 1500mm, marking out 20mm to tuck into that mortar joint and 60mm for the upstand. I'm now using the edges of my timber to beat the lead into shape, because it's much easier to pre-shape the lead at this stage than it is to try and do it on the roof. Now the lead tucks into my mortar joint, and then I'm using a tool to beat it flat to the wall before using lead clips. These are much better than balls of lead. They hit in and they keep the lead in place. Now we beat it to shape it to the tiles, seal it up with some lead mate. And with the lead work done, finally we are watertight, minus a window and door, which is coming in the next episode, and look how good our new roof looks. If you made it this far to the end, then thanks for sticking with us. I think you can see there's quite a lot involved in building your own DIY extension roof. You don't want to miss the next episode. We're going to do a cost update, and we're going to start the work on the inside, getting the walls knocked out, getting the floors sorted. There's so much to do. So make sure you join us on the next one and hit one of these videos if you want to see more cool builds. And I'll see you guys in the next one.